Why is 80% of Canada empty? Canada's geography is a stunning mosaic of natural wonders that amaze and inspire. From coast to coast, this vast country showcases nature's limitless creativity and unmatched grandeur. In the west, the eternally white towers proudly represent the majestic Rocosa Mountains. Its snow-covered peaks invite adventurers to climb them. More to the east, the Grandes Lagos turquoise waters extend as far as the eye can see, evoking a sense of serenity and calm that's hard to describe. These powerful water bodies, sculpted by ancient glaciers, testify to the forces that shaped this land over millennia. When traveling through Canada, the vast boreal forest spreads in all directions, creating a green oasis. Canada's geography is an enchanting symphony of land and water, mountains and plains, forests and coasts, leaving an indelible mark on all who see it. Canada is often considered large and sparsely populated. With almost 10 million square kilometers, Canada should be full of people. However, this hypothesis was far from the truth. In reality, 80% of Canada is uninhabited, with most of the population concentrated in a few cities and urban areas. Many wonder why such a vast country is so sparsely populated. Why is most of Canada uninhabited? The answer may surprise you. Despite being the world's second largest country with over 37 million people, Canada has vast tracts of land unspoiled by humans. In fact, 80% of Canada's landmass is uninhabited, leaving many to wonder why such a large country is underutilized. Before discussing why 80% of Canada is uninhabited, we must define uninhabited. The Canadian government defines uninhabited areas as those with no permanent residents or fewer than 0.4 people per square kilometer. Selvas, national parks, and other protected areas, as well as remote, hard-to-access regions may be included. Due to its size and harsh climate, much of Canada is uninhabited. Canada is the second largest country in the world, with over 9.9 million square kilometers. Bosques, mountains, and lakes cover most of this land, making access and development difficult. Permafrost covers northern Canada, making infrastructure and housing construction difficult. The First Nations people have lived in Canada for millennia, adapted to unique environments in different regions of the country. Some lived on the coast, fishing and hunting marine animals, while others lived in the interior, hunting and gathering food from forests and fields. Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut are tundra and Arctic regions of Canada. The harsh climate and limited access to essential resources make these areas extremely difficult for human habitation. The Inuit, who have a deep connection to these lands, have thrived in these conditions for centuries. The impermissible environment keeps the population low. In winter, northern temperatures can drop to -40 Celsius, and the sun may not rise for weeks. This makes living and working in these areas difficult. Additionally, northern regions have shorter growing seasons, limiting agricultural opportunities. Canada's geographic location is one reason for its harsh climate. Canada is in the northern hemisphere and closer to the North Pole than most other countries. This means Canada receives less sunlight and heat than other countries. The country's massive landmass means temperatures can vary greatly from region to region. For instance, while some parts of the region experience year-round sub-zero temperatures, others have a pleasant climate. This propagation of suitable land has shaped Canada's current demographics and the first Indigenous settlements before the colonial era. Ocean currents also affect Canada's harsh climate. 3 oceans, the Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic, can affect temperatures and weather patterns in the country. For instance, mixing Arctic and Pacific air can cause intense storms and flooding. The same way, ocean currents can change direction and temperature in coastal regions. Jet currents, strong air currents at high altitude, influence Canadian meteorological systems. These fast-moving winds divide the country into different climate zones. In winter, the polar jet stream brings Arctic air south, while in summer, the subtropical jet stream can cause disruptive storms. Jet currents and other meteorological systems can cause extreme seasonal conditions. Conversely, southern Canada has a milder climate and longer growth periods, which has led to a higher population density. Most Canadians live within 200 kilometers of the US border, where the climate is more temperate and conducive to human colonization. The Plains Cree, Blackfoot, and Assiniboine adopted a nomadic lifestyle to follow the vast bison herds. These rich pastures provided abundant hunting and gathering resources, and this buffalo became an essential part of their cultural and spiritual lives. Teepees, easily assembled and disassembled, allowed movement in these vast territories. Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Mi'kmaq live in eastern forests. From the Great Lakes to the Atlantic coast, this region provided forests, rivers, and lakes. These communities prospered in agriculture and used the forest for hunting and fishing. The Coast Salish, New Chalnoth, and Kwakwaka'wakw occupied the Pacific Northwest, including parts of British Columbia and Washington. These groups used the region's abundant fish, forests, and wildlife. Their material culture featured elaborate totem columns and cedar houses. Canada's colonial past contributed to its uninhabited areas. In the 19th century, Canada encouraged colonists to move west and settle on the prairies. However, this policy did not apply to the northern regions, which were too inhospitable for settlement. Thus, northern Canada remained mostly uninhabited and undeveloped. The Pacific Coast Railway shaped Canada's settlements in the late 19th century. The railway line connected the country's geographically dispersed regions by establishing settlements along its route. Cities and towns grew in strategic locations where rail transport and commerce supported Canada's economic growth. The railroad's influence went beyond its route, becoming a key factor in the city and town of Geographic. The distribution of housing often depends on the proximity of small towns and cities to railway lines. Natural resources also contribute to Canada's uninhabited areas. Canada is rich in minerals, oil, and gas, which has spurred economic growth in some regions. However, many of these resources are in remote, hard-to-access areas, leading to the development of temporary resource cities. Ecotourism and adventure tourism have grown due to Canada's natural beauty and wild areas. These industries have created temporary jobs and economic opportunities in remote areas, but they don't encourage permanent settlement. Many Indigenous Canadians live in remote, uninhabited areas. Treaties protect these populations because they have a distinctive cultural and historical tie to the land. Since the government must respect these rights and protect Indigenous lands, many of these areas remain uninhabited and undeveloped. Finally, political and administrative factors shaped Canada's uninhabited areas. The Canadian government promotes rural development through decentralization. This policy has developed regional capitals in small cities and remote areas to provide services and infrastructure to the local population. However, many remote areas lack infrastructure and services, which can hinder development. Many remote communities lack health, education, and other essential services, making it hard for people to live and work there. Despite the challenges of developing uninhabited areas, growth and development are possible. Technology and transportation advances have made remote areas easier to access and develop. Additionally, a growing interest in sustainable development and environmentally friendly industries can create jobs and economic opportunities in remote areas. Canada's stable economy offers many job, career, and business growth opportunities. Canada attracts international investors and entrepreneurs with its well-developed infrastructure, resource-rich regions, and focus on innovation and technology. Canada's immigration policies encourage people of different backgrounds to contribute to its economy, creating a vibrant and dynamic workforce. However, these areas face development challenges. For instance, climate change is causing permafrost to melt and changing weather patterns in northern Canada. These changes may affect infrastructure and make remote area development harder. Thus, the concentration of economic opportunities in cities and the south of Canada reduces the incentive for people to settle in remote areas. Agriculture, manufacturing, technology, and services are mostly found in densely populated areas with diverse labor forces and market access. Thus, remote or sparsely populated regions have limited economic viability, increasing the majority of uninhabited land. However, any effort to develop these areas must respect the rights of the treated indigenous peoples and protect the environment. Additionally, the government must address climate change challenges and ensure sustainable, environmentally responsible development. Canada's vastness and diversity, its historic settlement patterns, government policies, and economic conditions have shaped its population distribution, leaving about 80% of the country uninhabited or sparsely populated. These factors preserve Canada's unique natural landscapes, an ecological treasure. Understanding this demographic phenomenon allows us to appreciate and care for these regions without affecting them, while also recognizing the challenges it poses for future growth and development.